Today I want to open this Orthodox Jewish Bible, and I want to look at James, Yaakov, chapter 2, and I'm going to read this to you. It says, and it's talking about something called masopanim, favoritism, partiality. Mahim Moshiach, you do not with your acts of masopanim hold to the Orthodox Jewish emunah of the glorious Adonenu Rabbi Melech Moshiach Yahushua Yeshua. For if there enter into your shul a man with gold rings on his fingers, an expensive bekesha, the shtreimel and the kaftan and all that, and there enters also an underprivileged nebuch, a Kobson in Shmatas, and you pay special attention to the influential man wearing the bekesha and the shtreimel, and you say, "Oh, sit here in the seat of honor, the kabud," and to the pauper, you say, "You stand there, or you sit at my feet." Then he says, "This is not right," and this is what we're talking about when we say, "Called No Man Rabbi." We aren't saying that they didn't call Paul Rabbi when he went into the shul as a shliach, and they said, "Oh, Rabbi, we see you're here today. We welcome you. If you have a drasha or a homily or whatever, please come up to the platform." And this was his big thing, because his floor was the God-fearers for the congregations that he was starting. All the Lydias and all the Corneliuses, those kind of people. And so, of course, they called him Rabbi. But we're talking here about somebody making a big to-do out of you and giving you the seat of honor and treating you like you're a cut above, and getting into a whole stratification of the caste system here, where you have the low people down here, and then the rich people here, and then the rabbi up here. No, we don't do that, friends. We give honor to whom honor is due, but we do not make a guru or a high caste Brahmin out of a preacher. In the Yiddish, it says, "Meine Brüder, my brothers, halt nicht die emunah von Adon HaKavod, Adonenu Yeshua Moshiach, mit masopanim." He says, don't do that. Don't show favoritism. Vorem oib se kumt arein in Eier Shul, in your shul, a Mensch mit geldene Ringen, gold rings, und scheine Malbushim, beautiful clothes, und se kommt euch, and you also have come in Arain, and Oraman, a poor man, in Shmatas, in Opgerisen, Malbushim, ragged clothes, and you cooked mit hin, with you look with attraction, with favor, with grace, oif dem vos, on the one that trokt di shina malbushim. You're attracted to him. Oh, here you are. You came. Oh, you wonderful rich man. You came here. Take the chief seat. And zoikt, and say, du zits do. You know, if you say that, you sit here in the seat of honor, but to the Oraman, the poor man, you say sit on the floor, basically, because if you sit under mine footstool, mine Fußbänkel, then that's basically on the floor. Just sit on the floor. Now, friends, this is not right. And I got to tell you something. Sometimes I get to the subway and I'm thinking I got a long subway ride. I really need a seat, so I want to find a car that doesn't have too many people in it. And sometimes I enter an empty subway car and I say to myself, oh boy, there's going to be a place to sit down for a long subway ride. But something tells me that this is too good to be true. And bam, the odor hits me. And I see this naked homeless guy. And he's homeless and he's naked. And he stinks. And I have to hold my nose with one hand and shield my eyes because I'm repulsed with a little bit of contempt and also with some shame because, I mean, when you're around naked people in public, it's a shameful thing. It says they were naked and they were not ashamed, Genesis 2:25. Well, that was before the fall. This homeless guy is naked, and I am ashamed. Isaiah 53 verse 3 says, we hid, as it were, our faces from him. You know, just like the homeless man, right? You don't want to look at it. You shield your eyes. Romans 1:16 says, no, I am not ashamed of the gospel. Listen, Moshiach thought nothing of the shame of fulfilling Isaiah 53 because of the joy awaiting him in Hebrews 12:2. But I'm talking about an automatic reflex action of shame. When I go on the street to preach, as soon as I get there and open my mouth, it elicits a knee-jerk smirk and rolling of the eyes in superior scorn. And this kind of gesture, get away from me, get away from me. Disdainful gestures. And sometimes people won't even look at me. They kind of shield their eyes. They look straight ahead so they don't have to look at me. And that's because Yeshua was so marred by what he underwent. It says, they pierced my hands and my feet. Psalm 22. He was so marred that I guess if you're going to have a pecking order in the congregation, you'd have him at the very bottom. Then you'd have the Oraman, the poor man, in the shmata, in the rags. Then you'd have the rich man in the seat of honor, being kowtowed to by everybody because he has money. And then you'd have the pompous hosen, the usher, whatever, saying, no, you can't sit here. You sit down there. No. Oh, there you are with all your money. Oh, you come and sit up here. And then at the very top, you would have the rabbi with everybody saying, Rabbi, 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 Rabbi this and Rabbi that. And constantly, he hears the word rabbi about 100 times a service. Paul did not allow anybody to get sycophantic like that with him. We have all these guys, a lot of them don't even know how to read Yiddish, and they're calling themselves rabbi. Uh, the Messianic movement is filled with a lot of people who have a liberal taint to their doctrine, but they have a title of some kind because they got some education. Listen, friend, most of the Jews would rather be caught going into a brothel than going into a Messianic congregation. They are, the only way they can be reached is by a street preacher. So wouldn't you imagine that the devil would do that? Try to turn everybody into rabbis with chief seats and all these Indians and no chiefs, or I should say all these chiefs, more chiefs than Indians, more rabbis than congregants. Friends, the book of James specifically speaks against this, and he says, not many of you should be teachers. So I'm going to stand where I stand. Yes, if you do the function of a rabbi, if you do Jewish marriages and funerals, etc., bar mitzvahs, okay, do the work, but don't let people bombard you with a title that might puff up your own head and cause you to stumble. And remember also that the real shul is out there on the sidewalk where the Jews are walking by in the hundreds, and where when you try to preach, you will either get beaten up or chased away, or at the very least, if you have a mixed neighborhood where there's some Jews and some Gentiles, you will have this shame, this terrible shame of not wanting to look at Yeshua. But he said, Rav Shaul said, and here I'm calling him a rabbi, Rav Shaul said, I'm not ashamed of the good news. I'm not ashamed of the Besuras HaGeulah. I'm going to preach it in the open air in Athens. I'm going to preach it in the shul. I'm going to preach it in front of the governors. I'm going to preach it before Nero. I'm going to preach it in the prison. I'm going to preach it in the synagogue to the God-fearers and to my own people in Rome. I'm going to preach in Jerusalem. I'm going to preach everywhere. And if I perish, I perish. Amen.